Okay, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for attending our webinar. So we have an exciting webinar for you. So the title of the webinar is Vaccinate Your Business from COVID-19 Cyber Attacks. So I still see the number of people coming in, but it's okay. I think we can continue, Roy. I think we should just continue.
Yeah, I think we can start.
Okay. Okay, so I'm Isa. I'm from the ICT department in NTUC Learning Hub. And what we do in NTUC Learning Hub is that we partner up with some of the best in-class partners globally in order to give Singaporeans best education in all topics that we can find. So one of the most important topics that we find today that Singaporeans are interested in upskilling in is cybersecurity. So we partner up with Cybint, an excellent cybersecurity education company based in Israel, but now they are global. So let me read some excerpt on who Cybint is so that you know where Roy is from. So Cybint is a global cyber education company with a commitment to reskilling the workforce and upskilling the industry in cybersecurity. So with innovative and leading edge education and training solution, Cybint tackles cybersecurity's two greatest threats, the talent shortage, which we see in Singapore, and the skills gap. So Cybint's team comprised of military cyber experts, industry professionals, and educators united under the vision of creating a safer digital world through education, training, and collaboration. Yeah, so our collaboration with them has been great. We have launched courses as well, which I'll show you later on. But for now, we are really privileged and we are really happy to have the CEO of Cybint joining us to talk to you on the topic. So let me talk to you a little bit about who Mr. Reuser is. So he's a Cybint, a cyber education company. So Roy has more than 15 years of experience in cybersecurity and intelligence operations from IDF, Israeli Defense Force, Unit 8200. He's a retired major. Cyber education programs and technological solutions for companies, educational institutions, and government agencies around the world. So let's welcome Roy. So, over to you, Roy.
Thank you, Isa. Thank you, everyone. I hope we'll have a nice webinar together and we can share some insights about, the effects of COVID-19 on more than just health, ourselves and our business through cybersecurity attacks. I'm broadcasting this webinar today from Israel, actually it's also my birthday, so I'm really excited. I see it's more like a birthday gift to share the insights with you. NTUC Learning Hub, our close colleagues. Isa is a good colleague and friend, so I really appreciate you. By sharing my screen, 1 second, we'll be able to see it in a minute. And today, what we are going to cover in our discussion today, 1 second. Isa, can you see my presentation or not yet?
I'm seeing your PowerPoint slide as opposed to the full screen view.
1 second, I'll fix it. Yeah, now you should see the full screen view. Yeah, Isa?
Still waiting for it to appear on my screen. Just a moment, yeah.
I can start.
We can't see it yet.
We are still waiting for the screen to appear. Let's just give it a second.
Okay, meanwhile, I'll just tell you a few words about what we are going to cover today. So we're going to cover different aspects of cybersecurity, but specifically in the context of COVID-19, meaning specifically how this current situation is affecting us as in the long term, meaning not just right now during the circuit breaker or quarantine in other places, but also how the effects of COVID are going to change in a way, how we protect ourselves, how we protect our businesses Isa's approval for the screen. Yes?
Yeah, now we can see it.
Good, perfect. So let's start by understanding how actually we are connecting between COVID-19 and cybersecurity. I mean, COVID-19 is first and foremost, this is something you all know. You don't need to explain that. And I'm not a health expert. So unfortunately, I can't help in these matters. But while this is first and foremost a health situation, it also changes the way we work, we learn, we operate. So a lot of us are working already started before. A lot of online trends, online learning, online working, remote distant learning and distant working started before, but now accelerating. And in a way, even after the circuit breaker, even after the quarantine is over, still a lot of these things have been already accelerated. So they are going to change in a way, our work style and our learning style, et cetera, et cetera. And while more people are spending more time online, it means that also we have much more cyber attacks that are targeted towards these people. Now, in general, before COVID-19 and after COVID-19, cyber attacks are in a constant rise for many years now. So we are talking about tens of millions of cyber attacks per day. So it's not something that the number of attacks per day maybe stay the same, but right now a lot of these attacks are much more targeted around COVID, meaning that the scams and the specific attacks are now taking advantage of the fact that you, your colleagues, your families are at home, and also that you are maybe more sensitive or interested to learn about news about the pandemic, etc. So you may be more keen or lean to click on things and download things that seems like legitimate information about the pandemic. So in general, when we think about different aspects in cybersecurity, we need to understand that cybersecurity is by itself a global pandemic. Cybersecurity and cyber attacks cost the world last year about $650 billion US dollars. And the estimation by Accenture and other leading research institutions is that the cost of cyber crimes in the next 5 years will be about to give you some broad understanding of what we're talking about. We're talking about more than 2 times or about 2 times the GDP of a country like the UK, okay? That's the cost of cybercrime. That's the effect of cyber crimes and cyber attacks in the next few years. LHub and Cybint to focus on the human factor in cybersecurity, other than the fact that both of us are training and education companies, is also because although cybersecurity sounds like a super technical and complicated topic, and in some aspects there are complications and technological aspects, it is actually mostly a people-based issue or a human factor issue, because most of the attacks that have increased in the previous years and that will grow in the next years are actually what we call people-based attacks or human factor attacks. More likely to say, and different research from IBM and other companies show that more than 90% of all security incidents, of all cyber attacks, involve the human factor. It can be human error, it can be lack of skills, lack of workforce. We have workforce shortage in cybersecurity. So many of these affect, how we address cybersecurity. So we used to say, and right now this is kind of like a common phrase, that human factor is the weakest link in cybersecurity. So as the systems become more advanced and technologies become more advanced, what doesn't change in the same pace is the people, because we can't just upgrade our system. We need to learn, we need to adjust, we need to adopt new disciplines and new methodologies, et cetera, et cetera. And we have hundreds of people in this webinar today. And probably many of you think that you or your business or your organization are just not important enough to be targeted. we kind of like a lot of time we see ourselves, we say, well, I'm just, you know, a random person or a random company in Singapore or in another country in Southeast Asia. And, you know, why should anyone target me? You know, they don't know me. And that actually the first problem that we see in the misunderstanding of cyber attacks for two reasons. First, more than 90% of cyber attacks are not targeted against a specific company or a specific individual. They're just looking for the weakest link. So sometimes we say, you know, you don't need to outrun the bear. If you are, you know, two people are running from a bear, you don't need to outrun the bear. You just need to outrun the other person, which it doesn't sound nice. But if you think about this global race of protecting yourself, protecting your organization, you just don't want to be the weakest link. You don't want to be the weakest organization or person in which, you know, the hacker attacked you eventually, or the scammer focused on you because, you know, you were just the easiest to target. Because eventually most of cyber attacks are widespread attacks that focus on millions of tries, and they assume that some of them will succeed. That's one reason why it doesn't matter if you're important or not, if you're a small organization or a big organization. Actually, most cybersecurity victims are actually small and mid-sized businesses. So you should be fully aware of that. Second is, even if you are, you know, it is a targeted attack. Like, I don't know, you're working for a big bank in Singapore. Let's say you're working for UOB. And, you know, you're one of the 30,000 plus employees globally that the bank has. And you're not having a significant position in the bank. I mean, your position is important, but not the one that the hacker would target. Still, a lot of times the hacker, to get into the admin or the network administrator or some other senior executives with high level permissions, they will target someone in the maybe second or third tier of the organization. And from you, they will get to your connections, and from their connections to the third tier and fourth tier. And eventually you will find yourself going up the stream in a way, or down the stream, depends where you want to go, and target the specific computer, the specific network, the specific server you want. So I want to give you some examples, because right now it sounds very broad, and I want to give you some examples of how these things happen in the context of COVID-19, and how organizations target you as individuals and your organization by simple scams, social engineering, phishing, ransomware, etc. So let's start with the word phishing, right? So probably most of you have heard the term, not phishing like going on to fish, but actually it's like a phishing expedition. In this case, that the phishing in cybersecurity, meaning somebody is trying to trick you to make something you shouldn't do. Either provide your credentials, or click on something that will cause damage to your computer, or download a file that will start run a specific malware virus on your computer, etc., etc. So phishing has been with us for a while, right? But the interesting thing about phishing is, because it's based on a concept we call social engineering, like how to hack your brain or how to hack your mindset, then every time phishing is being adjusted to the current trend, you know, the current thing is on the news, etc., to make you click on it. The old phishing was kind of like a random email you get from a Nigerian prince, want to give you $10 million, which, you know, most 99.9% of people will probably not follow up on a random email that wants to give you $10 million. So the new advanced phishing is starting, especially also in the context of COVID, is in the relevant context. For example, you can see a phishing scam starting already in end of January, that kind of like you get a list of confirmed cases of COVID in your city. That's, for example, was posted in the US from the CDC. It looks like it's coming from a legitimate email, like the cdc.gov, etc. Now you should know that the fact that you see an email address that seems legit doesn't mean that the email address is actually legit. It's very simple to send you an email from an address that looks legit, but actually it's being what we call spoofing emails. You can, you know, Google later, just do spoofing email, and you can see that you can by yourself send emails as if you were another person. I won't get how, like why it's so easy based on the email protocol, but you should know that don't trust an email just because you see it allegedly coming from a known address or from a legitimate address. If you want, and I won't show it today, you can actually click on the original or the original email. Like sometimes in Gmail and Outlook and other platforms, you have the ability to show original, and then you can actually see the real email address behind it. But anyway, even if you don't know how to do it or not interested in doing it, the bottom line is that if you're not 100% certain that you are the real recipient of this email, that you were actually, and the sender is a legitimate sender, you shouldn't click a link. Because in this case, in this email, if somebody clicked the link, they were just asked to provide their credentials, which is again, a big alert. If you click on a link in an email, let's say you already clicked, never provide your credentials. You know, sometimes it looks like it's in order to get what you need, you just need to provide your Gmail credentials or your Outlook credentials. Don't do that, because a lot of times it's just not a legitimate website. You've been redirected to a third-party website. So instead of doing that, go directly to your Outlook or your Gmail and provide your credentials through there and not through a third-party website. Because if you will provide your credentials here, you are actually provided them to somebody who just stolen your email and password. And what then they'll do, they take this email and password, and A, they will try to get into your email, but B, they will test the same username and password they just stole from you in many different platforms. So they have a list, it's called credential stuffing. Stuffing, it means like they stuffed it into so many different websites, and they check in what websites you are actually using the same username and password. So let's say I stole your Outlook account, or I stole your Grab account, like Uber or Grab. Now I can test the same user in so many different platforms and maybe hack into your Amazon account and to your other platforms. So not providing, credentials, it's super important in this aspect. Now, sometimes you say, well, I never provide credentials, I never provide credentials. So you should know that in phishing scams, there are other types of scams that you don't need to provide credentials. You just need to click on the file. So sometimes you get an email with a PDF or a Word document. The email seems legit. That's an example from Italy when they were in the peak of their pandemic in March. Coming from a doctor in Italian, giving you information, alleged information about the disease and what you should do, etc. And a lot of people are interested in clicking it. Now, what people don't know, and when they click on it, and I'm not providing any credentials, just click on the file they received, a Word document. When they'll click on it, the Word document will look legit. There will be information inside the Word document. You wouldn't even know that you've been tricked. Specifically with Word documents, we see a type of malware, which is like a computer virus that spread through this Word document. You click the Word document, then you kind of approve the Word document to start running something without knowing that, of course. And immediately you have a malware in your computer. And this malware, some antivirus, anti-malware can stop it, but it's being like a human virus. It's also going through mutations, this time actually people managing these mutations. So even if your antivirus or anti-malware can identify a specific malware, maybe it won't identify the new mutation or the new version of the malware. This is a malware called TrickBot. Again, I won't go into all the technical details, but the bottom line is you click the Word document and start to run a malware on your computer. So that's something that will actually allow a hacker full access to your computer or to your network. So it can actually get into other computers in your network if you are an organization. Now you may say, well, I never provide credentials, I never click links, I never download files, so I don't worry about that. The problem is that phishing scams become more and more sophisticated. And actually what hackers are trying to do is take human nature and turn it against us. So I want to give you an example of a phishing scam I did against my own company, or more likely to say my CISO did against our company to test our resilience, which is really important to do phishing campaigns on our company to test our resilience and to understand what people don't know. So what the hacker, it's not really a hacker, but what our CISO did, the CISO was looking for news about my company and took something that was recently on the news, for example, a webinar that Cybint was doing with another company in the US. And then what the hacker did is sending an email that looks legit about this webinar and made this email look like it was sent from the HR manager at our company. And we sent it to many people in the organization. And unfortunately, about 5% of the organization, or almost 10%, honest, to be totally honest, clicked on it. And not only they clicked on it, they actually provided information in the file. And that was a malicious, in this case, not really, but malicious file, meaning that was a scam. The email was not right. Everything, like there were a lot of things that we should be aware of, and still people in my company, in Cybint, being trained in the training company, you know, almost anywhere between 5 to 10% fall into the scam. So we actually, this is an never ending and ever going battle because the hackers are always trying to become more sophisticated and send you emails that looks legit. Now, the thing is that if you click one of these, or if you interact with one of these, you can activate different type of malware. I mentioned TrickBot. There is another malware that's called Emotet or Emotet. This type of malware, you may say, well, I won't click on anything. But you know what this malware does? It does email hijacking. So sometimes what you'll get is you'll actually get an email coming from an old email correspondence, an old thread you were part of. Kind of like one of the users will reply and send something. So it will look super legit because, you know, you've been part of the correspondence in the past. And something may not look right, like the wording, it won't look like it's coming from this person, but you may say, well, you know, it's part of the thread I've been part of, and you'll click on it. If you'll do that, you'll actually, with the Emotet, you'll activate something that's called a ransomware. For example, the Riot ransomware. This ransomware, so you only click on the file will download something to your computer, and this something that was downloaded to your computer, we will download the ransomware. And the ransomware just locks, encrypts your file, and you won't be able to open them. And then what the hacker will ask you is the hacker will ask you to pay. Now, specifically with the Riot malware, that's right now, it's everywhere. Hackers ask for a lot of money. If on a typical ransomware, hackers make like $10,000 US dollars, for Riot, hackers are asking more than $1 million. So if you can pay, or your business can pay, then your data will be will be removed or deleted. And this is something that we see more and more of these ransomware attacks. You know, you suddenly get this note on your computer, gentlemen, your files have been encrypted. You can try to fix it. You have to pay, and then they instruct you how to pay. And every day you don't pay, the ransom becomes bigger and bigger. So these are the type of things that you should be fully aware of. Now, I see some people are asking questions, which is great, by the way. And thanks for the birthday blessings. So I will address these questions later. You can use the Q&A box or chat box, and I'll address the questions towards the end of the session. So now you may say, well, you know what? I'm not going to interact with emails and links, and I'll be very cautious, and I use all the mechanisms in my Outlook or Gmail to protect from phishing scams. So I want you to be also aware about what we call malicious websites. These are websites, for example, what you see here, I don't know if you can see the full screen, but what you see here is the number of URLs, web addresses, that use the word COVID or Corona or something like the SARS-2 in 2019 versus March 2020. You see that right now there are more than 40,000 new domains only using the word Corona or COVID in different aspects. So now many of them are legit, but you should know that hackers, what they do is they know you're interested in it. So what we see, and this is from another Israeli research company called Checkpoint, one of the biggest companies in cybersecurity in the world, we can actually see that many of these URLs around COVID are actually malicious. Meaning, if you click on them, you don't need to click on an email or something. Like somebody is sending you, I don't know, a text with like, hey, see this website, and you click on the website and it seems legit. Once you click on the website, for example, this is a website that is by itself legit. This kind of like count the cases of COVID, and that's from COVID in the world, and from Johns Hopkins University. The thing is, hackers kind of like created a similar website that staked the data from this website. So the website they created looks legit, but when you get to their website, you'll actually be in a malicious website, okay, that will download something to your computer and will take control on your browser. For example, if you save like your credit card or password on your browser, you know, sometimes you type like a password and say, yes, save it to my browser. It's risky because then if there is a malware that attacks your browser, they can steal it. And that's why we always say, go directly to the source. Don't use links that people send you with text. If you see a website that you're interested in, I don't know, Google it or type the exact address, because sometimes they will write an address that looks legit, but they just change the way it looks like. The URL behind it, the web address behind it is different. You click on it, you get to a different website. So always go directly to the source. Otherwise, again, attackers may use the browser and the website to attack your computer. That's what happened, by the way, with the World Health Organization. Many websites kind of like pretend to be the World Health Organization when the pandemic just started or announced as a pandemic. And the World Health Organization kind of like announced the world, beware of criminals pretending to be us. So if this is not WHO.int, this is not us. Like we will never ask you to visit the link outside of WHO.int. Now, another interesting thing that we see, in the context of COVID is the importance of what we call threat intelligence. So in cybersecurity, a lot of time we think about how to protect ourselves. But if you think about like military situations where, the military doesn't just want to protect, the military also wants to not just attack, but also to collect information. So one of the things we see right now in general, and specifically also with COVID, is the importance of gathering intelligence, especially if you're a business, about future attacks and what's going to happen. Now, I want to give you some examples. In 2009, that were the main cyber breaches around the world. So like a decade ago, a bit more. In 2019, you can see the difference. Like 2009, not many. The biggest one was just 100 million plus like breach. And then in 2019, you have like 400 million breach, big companies. So nobody's really immune to that. And the question is, where is this data going to? Okay, a hacker stole the information. Then what? What do they do with your information? So something that you should know and your organizations should know, that a lot of this information and a lot of these scams are going into a place called the dark web, which again, it's just a name we gave to these hidden places in the internet. It's not really dark, but it just means that in some place of the internet where the transactions are encrypted, and actually you can go there yourself. I mean, just by downloading a browser like Tor, but I'm not going to go into it. There are marketplaces, things like Amazon, that sell and buy goods. Just the goods are not, gift cards and packages, but actually fraud, drugs, and other stuff like this. For example, this is an old web marketplace where you can go to fraud, click on bank accounts, go into, let's say, Wells Fargo Bank, and just buy other people's, bank accounts. And you can see you even have a refund policy. What if you buy an account that doesn't work? You'll get your money back. So hackers, they have the vendor level, trust level, they interact there. So also in the context of COVID, since COVID started, we see much more cases like this around COVID. And hackers that steal information, they share it, so that way they can hide themselves. So if I stole like 10,000 credit cards, I'm not going to use 10,000 credit cards. I'll get caught and it will take too much time. So I'll sell these credit cards to small criminals or other people. and they'll use the credit card. So for example, if there is a credit card with $10,000 allowance, I'll sell it for $1,000. I'll make less, but I'll make money fast and disappear. So, and there's always a battle, like the FBI and other law enforcement agencies are trying to shut down websites in the dark web, and then other websites appear that looks almost the same. And that's an ever-going cycle that also right now in the context of COVID is happening. Now, another thing, by the way, I see questions. I will also get to what you actually should do to protect yourself in a few minutes, don't worry. So another interesting thing is we also see the involvement of governments and government actors in the context of COVID, which is not new, right? I mean, cybersecurity in general is something that governments have been utilizing as a weapon for a while now. So, for example, I don't want to point fingers, but I'm just sharing some examples. Like another research shows from Checkpoint shows that, for example, the Chinese government have targeted Mongolian public sector around COVID-19 campaigns, meaning sending phishing and fake emails to officials in Mongolia. But again, it's not unique to China or Russia or the US. You should assume that most countries are using cybersecurity or cyber attacks either to create damage to another country as part of the ongoing conflict, or to collect information, or, which is another thing that we see growing in the last few years, spread misinformation and disinformation. So, I mean, in general, you shouldn't believe everything you read on the news, especially if it's not a legitimate website. But specifically, in the last few years, you should know, you should be fully aware that many governments are using it as a tool against you. So they will try to, again, hack your brain, make you believe something, just read a title, see a website, like a news website, which will actually not be legitimate, and use your fear from the situation to make you make you think things are not the way they actually are. We see the US and China fighting over it, US and Russia, and other countries and smaller countries also are in this game. Now, a few words about what you should do. So I presented a lot of things right now in the context of, of COVID. And again, then I'll take questions. I see the questions. Then I wanna address this. A lot of things have changed with COVID. And you can see this report from McKinsey. More people are working from home in the circuit breaker, so we have to change permissions and give them like app access, and more people are using their own personal devices, so they're more sensitive. And the lack of social control, like social distancing, make people that are not working now from the office kind of like not sure if the emails they get are from the real person or not. They can just look at the other desk and ask the person. So it changes. So a few really basic things, right? Really basic things you should do as individuals and as companies, which will, I would say, increase your protection in 90%. Because again, you don't need to outrun the bear. You don't need to outrun the hacker. I mean, if the hacker really wants you, if this is the Chinese government or the US government targeting you, they will get you. But it's not the case, right? In most cases. So be aware that you should just take some precautions. For example, what we call 2FA, two-factor authentication. Have two-factor authentication in every app you're using. Meaning, even if it's not a super important app, and I'll explain why. Two-factor authentication means that if somebody stole your credentials in some way, not even from you, you gave your credentials to a website, there was a data breach, and somebody got your credentials. It means that when they try to use your credentials in Amazon, in Gmail, in Outlook, in Grab, in whatever, you will need to confirm it in another way. For example, you'll get a text, you get a notification, etc. So in that case, well, the hacker will see there are two-factor authentication. In most cases, they will move to the other person. It happens automatically. They test millions of, a lot of time, like in brute force, like millions of users. Just use two-factor authentication. And not just technological two-factor authentication. For example, for specific processes in your business, let's say your payment process. If your account manager, controller, bookkeeper, I don't know, needs to pay something. And usually you just send them an email and say, hey, pay this and that. Ask them to approve payment at least in two ways. For example, if they get an email with a request to payment or an approval, they need to also verify it through text message or WhatsApp or a call. That because we see a lot of scams that people pretend to be, I don't know, the CEO, the CFO, and they give directions on the name on behalf of the company, and this is fake. So two-factor authentication and this human two-factor authentication. Two, as individuals, especially if you're not working with the company's devices, never postpone the security updates. You know, we like to say, not now, we'll do it tomorrow. And then the security updates, there are weeks until we actually, the computer forces us to do it. The problem is when there is a security update, it means that right now there is a vulnerability that hackers know as well. I mean, Microsoft told you that there is a vulnerability, so update something, or Apple told you that there is a vulnerability to update something. So also the hacker know that. Maybe they don't know exactly how to use this vulnerability, but it means that hackers now invest time in kind of like reverse engineering this vulnerability and understand what they can do, you know? So you should patch it immediately. You know, one of the biggest attacks in the world a few years ago, like the biggest ransomware, attacks in the world in 2017 happened to a vulnerability that was already known in Windows. So patch your device, and as an organization, also patch your organization. When you work from home, work from distance, not using your own network, try to use as much as you can encrypted network, like using a VPN, a virtual private network that will encrypt your data, especially if you're connected also to a public Wi-Fi or to a Wi-Fi you share with others, and you're not connected to your secured system on your, company's platforms. Also, as a company, you can do it as individuals, but especially as a company, you can make sure that your employees and team members, they don't get most of the spam and most of the ransomware and most of the malware just by setting some rules and buying some tools, not very expensive tools that you have, for example, in Office or Gmail that will screen, or Mimecast, that will screen most of the emails, that will kind of put emails that are suspicious in quarantine before you approve them and before the sender approve it, kind of block if you see a known malware, will block it before the user gets it. These are basic things that we should do. Also, by using platforms like Zoom, like we are using Zoom right now, you probably heard that there are so many complaints around Zoom security. So I would say that they did a lot of good job in the last few weeks and months. I already also had an interview with Fortune magazine that I shared my thoughts. I don't think Zoom is a bad platform. They're using it right now. I think they're doing a fairly good job in making it better. But you should be aware of the fact that Zoom moved from 10 million users, to 200 million users daily in a month, like this. So you need to understand that they as a company didn't expect it. And right now, and I'm not, protecting them, I'm just saying right now, hackers see this huge growth in Zoom usage. And they say, well, we have to find vulnerabilities in Zoom. So when something becomes viral, pun intended, when something becomes viral, then the hackers also want to target it. So right now, hackers are investing a lot in finding vulnerabilities in Zoom. So you should at least, again, here, don't be the weakest link. Use password, prevent people that are not the host to share their screen, use waiting room, don't use your private Zoom meeting room. Things like that. You can actually go online, see many tips that you can get. And also your background, that's your privacy. If you're going online, maybe there's nothing here behind me that you shouldn't see, but still, you don't know. A lot of people will see a lot of cases in which it's not security, but it's privacy. And privacy sometimes is as important as security. Now, to summarize it all, and then I'll move it back to Isa, and afterwards I'll answer all your questions. I want to say what's important in my mind. And again, as a cyber company that focuses on the human factor and on cyber education, I'm a bit biased towards training. So training is just one of the components. There are other technological components. But as I mentioned before, and this is not me saying, this is companies like Accenture and IBM and Microsoft. And I'm reading the first bullet point in the report, place greater emphasis on protecting people due to the rise of, in phishing, ransomware, and malicious insider attacks. So we need to invest more in the human beings. And the problem, and I know this slide doesn't, it's hard to read, but I'll explain. The problem is a lot of times we just think about it as awareness. And the problem is that I'm aware of a lot of things that are not healthy. You know, if you're smoking, you're probably aware that smoking is bad. If you're texting and driving, you probably know it's bad. The awareness didn't change your behavior. So with cybersecurity and the human factor, we need to focus on training that actually changes, you know, the people's behavior. And this is what's important, to build these layers of knowledge, of skills or abilities and tasks and tools. So this is kind of like our approach, you know, our approach at Cybint. And that's how when we partner in Singapore with Skills Future, you know, with the cybersecurity agency, IMDA and others, and of course, LHub, in the US with the NICE framework, the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. We believe that this should be an effort of a lifelong learning in cybersecurity, and to make sure that for every point where you're at, if you're just in, I don't know, middle school, if you're right now a student or an entry-level employee, or you're already in a corporate, you know, working for your department or managing your department, for every different point, we need to adjust the relevant training. For example, and these are some of the things we're doing in Singapore as well. For general employees, you know, for mid-level management, for people who have some interaction with data, not security people, not, you know, not IT people, but some interaction with data. They need to have like a behavior changing training. So that's why, for example, that's an example what we are doing with LHub in Singapore, the CSPC. You know, it's 8 hours, it's very focused, but it's focused on changing your behavior. And then after these 8 hours, you get access to a system, to a training system. So you don't just have this 8 hours and then forget about it. You have access to the system, you get updates, because it needs to be constant, you know, constant renewals and constant thinking about the risks. For more advanced people, or I mean, technologically advanced people, or people who want to get into the, job or workforce in cybersecurity, we have the boot camp, something that we also launched with LHub in a few months. You know, something that takes you from what we call zero to hero, or zero to employed. So you can actually, you know, solve complicated cybersecurity challenges and get employed in cybersecurity. And in the corporate training, you know, something that actually take you step by step in the learning process, like a lifelong learning approach. And even something, you know, for kids, something that like a gamified environment that we created for kids that we deploy in different places around the world. So I think eventually, the reason I wanted to share our vision with you in some context, and of course answer your question in the context of COVID, is because we really want to create a safer digital world, you know, by reskilling the workforce and upskilling the industry. We're doing it worldwide, including in Singapore. Actually, Singapore is one of our main hubs. We love the country. We have team members there, partners there, and we are really, keen to grow in this country. And I wanna give the presentation back to Isa to say a few words, and then we can answer some more informational questions about the questions you asked. Isa, you can take it from here.
All right, thanks, Roy. So yeah, I'll be presenting very quickly, like a couple of minutes before I pass it back to Roy, so that I think you guys have a lot of questions to ask. So I think it's more you're very interested to see the answers to this question. Allow me to share my screen. Just a moment. Okay. Okay. Roy, tell me when you are able to see the screen. Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so you'll be wondering, Isa, what is it that we are doing with Cybint? So as we spoke earlier, there are two things. One is the bootcamp, which when we have it, we'll call you guys again. So we'll do another webinar, and then that webinar will be, you know, based on the bootcamp. But the other thing that we are doing is this course called Cybint, Cybersecurity Protection course, which has been immensely popular. So we are open like over 15 classes a month, and we're selling out because the course is really an excellent one. So I'll show you this preview video of, let me see whether there's sound. Just a moment, yeah. Okay, there is. Okay, so this is a video of us running the program, and then we spoke to the people who set in, and then I'll tell you more about what the program is about right after that.
Yes, my name is Billy Rahdianto. I'm actually doing this IT security cyber consultant and awareness and education since 1997. So it's approximately 20 years in around Asia Pacific, like in Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Australia, and any other Asia Pacific country. A lot of attack, a lot of cyber crimes, and it's more organized because now hackers, they are not just doing the activity for fun, they're also doing the activity to make money, to make profit. And the problem is a lot of companies, they don't realize that, especially because everything is based on the internet nowadays, mobile application, web-based application, financial transaction, and so on. So we need to really focus in the cybersecurity. The problem nowadays is a lot of hackers can easily break into companies or someone else's system easily without enough knowledge. They can just download the tools from the internet. They can just download the book from there. They can just watch the YouTube and so on. So that's the problem nowadays. Okay, the weakest link in the security chains is still human. We have fastest growing internet user, but the problem is a lot of users, they don't know or even they don't aware of the cyber security threat. So that's the problem. All the employees, let's say in the start from the end user to the top level management, at least they must have awareness of the cyber security. At least they must know what hacker can do to their organization. What is the attack? What kind of let's say the motive of the goals of the cybercrime organization. You need to always keep up to date with the latest threat, with the latest vulnerability, latest technology, right? By education, by training, or by joining a seminar, going to the workshop, and so on.
From the workshop today, I think it has done a good job to tell us that threats are everywhere. So we are being attacked through our laptops, our mobile phones, our internet, Wi-Fi, and so on. So it sort of tells us to be more vigilant wherever we are, whatever we are doing.
Well, we are the one of the bigger subsidiaries in Singapore or the Asia Pacific in general. Our management is always asking us to be more aware of the threats around us. So we have to be more vigilant in that sense.
One of the key messages in this session was that the users are actually the weakest link in terms of security. I mean, we can have the best of breed for IT security and everything, but through various other means, hackers can come into our system. So definitely we need to create awareness for the end users so that they are more resilient to such an attacks.
My key takeaways from this workshop is that you may have the most up-to-date, state-of-the-art cybersecurity, but the one thing that would topple the entire house of cards is the human element.
I particularly enjoy the part where this workshop is very much down to earth with a lot of demos, and I think we can see in a very practical way that how attacks are being carried out and how easily that we are being compromised, and if we are not careful, we would be definitely under attack by the hackers.
The human element is the weakest link, so to raise the awareness is the most pivotal point. Or you can change your policies, you can update your policies, but if the human, the user themselves choose to ignore it, then you have a liability for your cybersecurity right there. So thank you NTUC Learning Hub for putting this workshop together. It was an extremely valuable experience.
Okay, yeah. So the idea is that we wanted to design a course that is not so dry, that is not so based on just memorizing, telling you facts about cybersecurity. So it was designed by Cybint, and when we looked at it, we thought that, yeah, this is definitely something we should bring in. So it looks something like this. We show a demo of Wi-Fi security, for example, the man-in-the-middle attack. So literally they set up this setup, and then you try to connect to this Wi-Fi. And then when you do, and this is the reason why you can connect to a public Wi-Fi, which is especially not encrypted, but just generally, you shouldn't go for unencrypted Wi-Fis. So the hackers can then push websites to you. And our demonstrator will do that. They'll push a fake, for example, DBS bank website, and then you'll type in and then your credentials, and then they can see your credential. So it creates like, you will get to see the behind the scenes of a hacker attack, how a hacker does it. And then after we show you that, which is extremely alarming. The first time I went for this, I felt that, yeah, I was a little bit more careful, right? Really after that one. And what we do after that is we show you the best practices and the information to protect yourself. And we do this over and over again. So another one, phone spoofing, email spoofing. We show you that you can send an email with the email address being fake. So it might even look like something ntuc.com, but it's not from ntuc.com, for example. And we show you that it is possible. And then from there, we tell you what you should look out for. So when we do it over and over again, it's extremely engaging, extremely exciting. And that's why you saw the response was like that. After watching all the how easily the hacker can gain access or compromise the system, they got really excited. And this gives you 3 outcomes that I think is relevant. The first one is, let's say you do not want to do cybersecurity. What you are able to do then is you will have a very much better knowledge on how to protect your organization and your data. Because now you know what are the approaches that hackers conventionally do. Secondly, and the third one, I think both are the same point, we want to excite you about cybersecurity. So when you look at the hacker does all these attacks, right, you get really excited. So you spur your excitement and passion in cybersecurity. And it's a precursor for you to then, okay, I like the hacker part of it. Maybe I can become a penetration tester or ethical hacker, let's say. Or I want to defend against this, then I can be in a blue team. There's like different courses you can go later on. But this is a very nice first course, because it gives you an exciting first course. Okay. So that after that, like what Roy say, because we do not want it to be like, okay, you just take the course for 1 day and then you don't have access to the course after that. Cybint gives 3 months access to their platform. So after that, there'll be updates and new news on cybersecurity that you can get through their platform. So there's some kind of continual engagement that you get over 3 months. Okay, just one thing that you'll be wondering is that, okay, so Isa, how much do I have to pay for this? So we wanted it to be affordable for everyone. And so this is how it looks like. While the cost fee is $400 and with GST, that's $428, there's currently a funding by IBF, the Institute of Banking and Finance, which is extremely generous. So if you're an individual who's a Singaporean or PR, you just have to pay for 5% of that after GST. So you have to pay 5% of $428, so it's $21.40. But you don't even have to pay this $20. What you can do is that you just recently have a top up, right, for your SkillsFuture credit. You can use that to pay for this $21.40. If you're an NTUC member, half of this amount you can use UTAP. And then you don't use up your SkillsFuture credit, right? You can use it for something else later. But regardless, what it means is this $21.40 you don't have to pay out of your pocket, but rather use your SkillsFuture credit. And then there's something that, because right now the IBF have this funding that they want to encourage Singaporeans to upskill, especially in these hard times, right, of COVID-19. So you're incentivized to learn. So you'll earn $10 an hour of training allowance. For every hour that you go for training, this training is, you get $10. So this training is 8 hours altogether. So altogether, after finishing the course, you can claim $80. So in essence, if you're a Singaporean or PR, you'll qualify for this 5% funding, basically. You just have to pay for 5%, use your SkillsFuture credit, and then you can claim an allowance. So it incentivizes you to learn about cybersecurity, which is something that NTUC Learning Hub, we are very excited about. We want all Singaporeans to, get their feet wet on cybersecurity. And that's the reason why we partner up with Cybint. So if you are interested in going for this course, I will leave this for a minute on this screen. Use your mobile phone and you can use this QR code to register. Otherwise, we can send you an email as well. Right now, for this class, we have opened up many classes this month, but for the month of May, there's only a couple of classes left. So if you want to go for it, especially within the circuit breaker period, especially, there's a couple of classes left. So it's on a first come, first serve basis. So you might want to register now. So you may use the QR code to register. And then our guys will call you and then follow up with you. Yeah, I think I'll leave the screen here and then I'll pass the mic back to Roy because we're running out of time for this webinar to answer the questions that you guys have asked.
Yeah.
Roy, over back to you.
I will go through the questions quickly. So I see first question is Zoom a safe platform for teleconferencing. So I mentioned that there are some loops in the platform like in other platforms. Remember that also other platforms like Teams or Google, they have also, you know, financial interest to saying why the other is not safe. I think that fairly they are making improvements. It's not 100% you know, bulletproof, and there are some aspects with their encryption that are, you know, in doubt. But in general, if you take the precautions I mentioned before, you know, password, allow users with, you know, have like a waiting room and only allow allowed users, etc., you should be fairly okay. Okay, I mean, I think that for you, it's good enough for now. You mentioned that human factor is the weakest link in cybersecurity. Can you elaborate and suggest how to mitigate the risk? So I mentioned some of these aspects. For example, I mentioned by using, you know, using the VPN, updating the software patches, making sure that, for example, you are not clicking or downloading irrelevant files, etc., etc. I think that later we'll send a summary or even the presentation through NTUC LHub. So I think you'll have more information from what I presented. Next question, does MacBook prevent malicious software or malware? So no, I mean, Apple is considered more secured because it's kind of like interacts with less external third party, but it doesn't prevent it. Or even if you go to, it doesn't prevent it. Even if you go to Apple's official website, they will say, well, we are a secure, you know, device, but use this and that, etc. So I would recommend going into like Apple support. You can see some of their tips on, you know, what kind of software you should use. In general, only use the approved software on the App Store of Apple. And don't go and download things from unknown places. Don't run different scripts on your computer, etc. But it doesn't prevent malware. Okay. Someone else say, might be a silly question. There are no silly questions, by the way. Can mobile phone be hacked if we received an unknown number? Yes. So a mobile phone, this thing, is a computer. Okay, it's just a computer you hold in your hand, a smartphone, I mean. So a smartphone is a computer. You can hack the smartphone like you can hack the computer. So you should have the same precautions on your iPhone or other Android or other phone. For example, different tools, anti-malware, use VPN on your phone, things like that, because it can be hacked as well. Another question is saying that educating end user is important, but sometimes, you know, it's repetitive, and how can you prevent it from become repetitive? Which is right. We think that the training itself needs to be practical and focus on behavior changing. 2, it needs to be also something that's constantly updated. Not the same dated video we watch like years and year again, but actually something that's being updated on a weekly basis and takes in consideration the context. For example, COVID, right? So that's something that is important. For businesses in general, we believe that the training has to be ongoing. Another question, is there a standard for training like ISO or for BCP? So I would say that in general, what we focus on is using the relevant national frameworks. For example, in Singapore, the ICT skills framework, in the US, the NIST framework. So we are using that. I see another comment, not a question, that's saying that in the video we presented some threat map that is no longer available. So I just want to say that the video that Isa showed was a video that was presented last year. So it's not part of the training. It's just an example of the training. We are always updating the content. So this is something that you should, you know, you should be aware of. Now, another question is, what can you do, you know, if your phones are hacked or if there are viruses? So in general, there are different tools in which you can clean your phone and run like an anti-malware, antivirus on your phone. Even if the big companies like Norton or McAfee or others, when they have the desktop version, they also have the phone version. So you should have both versions. Usually it's also cost the same. You know, I see another question from someone saying, I'm 68 years old and not so savvy, like tech savvy, IT savvy. Can I attend this course? Again, I'm not going to speak on behalf of NTUC, but I will say that the course is based to take also beginners from with no knowledge and get them through, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Process.
Exactly. So yeah, for this course, CSPC, it's really for anyone, as long as you are using IT devices and you're IT literate and you're using the computer and the internet, it is for you. Because for maybe if you're more tech savvy, you might have deeper insights on what the hacker is doing. But you know, you'll still be able to appreciate what is being shown to you as long as you're using the computer and the internet.
Yeah, I see another question after CSPC. What is the next course that I should take? Again, not speaking on behalf of LHub, I will say that we are also launching later this year another more advanced cyber intelligence course with LHub, and of course the 3 months boot camp. So depends how deep you want to go, but definitely, you know, definitely this is something that will provide more opportunity.
Yeah. Right. If I may add right here, just a second. So for the bootcamp, I think it's really for people who want to go all in, right? So I think that one will be something that we will do another webinar for. But what Roy spoke about was the threat intelligence course. So now the CSPC is more on hackers and what hackers do, right? The threat intelligence is more of what Roy shown just now, the dark web and how you, okay, I do not know more about it. I mean, Roy probably will be able to talk about it better than I do, but it's in a similar fashion. We want it to be punchy for you to get the behind the scenes action around threat intelligence and then present it in the exciting manner that we do in CSPC.
I think we covered most of the questions, Isa, right?
Yeah, I think we did. Okay, so we have to close the webinar now. Thanks a lot for coming, and thanks Roy for such a insightful and interesting webinar. I'll definitely try to get you to do more of these for us because it's extremely good.
Breaker to end so I can come back to Singapore. I missed you guys.
Okay, happy birthday as well, yeah? Okay, thanks everyone. We'll close the webinar now. Have a good day. Bye-bye.